what we were discussing right now was to create an Access database, and I've created an Access database with a small table and with some records here. Okay, and I've converted or exported this particular database of Access into an XML file. Okay, so once I've converted or exported them to XML file, you can see that here in this one, the XML file has been generated. You can see this XML file here. Let me just zoom in. Okay, so here I have created an Access file which is around 408 kilobytes. Okay, KB. But please note how many records are there. Okay, there are around 5 records which I have created, and it has been given as 408 KB. Okay, now I've exported that same data into an XML file. Just look at the file size. Okay, the size is 1 KB. Does it matter? Does it have my data? Let me just open it and see. Let me just open it with Notepad and let's see what data is available there. Okay, I guess you guys can see that the same data what I have, the 5 details which I have is available here also. Okay, you can see that 1 John MCA 2020, that entire record is still here. Okay, I have it in XML format. The data is still there. Only thing is the format is different. Please note, if I use Access database, what is the size of that particular file, and the same 5 records I've stored it in XML file, which is the reduced version, and it is 1 KB. Okay, it's not even close. It's like so many times smaller than an Access database. Just think of this in a real world scenario when you have thousands of records. Okay, when you have thousands of records in an Access database file or another file, any database file for that sake, the file will be stored in a big size. Okay, so when you convert them to XML, the size becomes smaller, one thing. Second thing is, to open this XML file, I don't require a special software. I don't require like Office to be installed or Notepad++. I can just open it regular Notepad also. It still works. Okay, so I can just open it with a Notepad. A simple Notepad which is coming along with your operating system, that is there in all operating systems, Linux or Mac or whatever it is, which means this XML file will not be restricted over the firewall. Firewall will not block it because it's not going to carry any virus, because it's a .xml file and it is a simple text document. It's a text-based document. So this is the thing what disconnected architecture takes into consideration. When you use disconnected architecture, all the database which you have has been converted into an XML file within .NET framework. So what happens here is that the data is much faster, much efficient. Okay, it responds to you quicker. That's why we use disconnected architecture, not for each and everything. Please remember that normally the highest priority for disconnected architecture is given only while retrieving data from the database, which is almost static. Okay, not for dynamic data. Please understand that. That's why we use, but there is an option, but that option is not given in most of the subjects or most of the other programming technologies what we have seen so far. Okay, please remember that. Let's move on. So let me just create a new project now. Today's project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take retrieval in disconnected architecture and insert, update and delete using connected architecture. But I'm going to create it not to explain each and every concept, but rather to put them all in one place, just like how we did Android in the last semester. Let me just create a new project. Let me create a web application, ASP.NET web application, C#, and let me just give it as let's say database demo. Okay, and let me just create it with web forms as my template. Let me remove that HTTPS because it's not a real world project. It's just a practice project. Let me just click on web forms. Let me click on create. Okay, in the meanwhile, while it is creating, let me just quickly revise what we did in Android in the last semester. Okay, if you remember, we created something called POCO. Okay, and that was like a structure of my what do you call the database. Okay, so a class which we had in C# or Java was equal to a table which was there in my database. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use that same logic, but we are going to use ADO.NET in order to perform that. Okay, so we are going to create a C# file which represents the database which is there in the SQL Server or Microsoft SQL, doesn't matter which logic you are using. But I'm not going to write database code in each and every file which I'm creating. Rather, I'm going to write it in one place and call it in different places. So let's start. Let me go to Solution Explorer. Let me just create a database first. So let me just add a new database. Okay, let me click on new item, data, and let me choose SQL Server database. Let me name it as let's say books DB. Okay, some example we are giving. Okay, so here I'm going to take it up as app underscore data because it's a database related file. So all those things will go inside app underscore data. And once it has been created, let me open server explorer and let me open that and see tables folder. Let me create a new table. I hope by now you get the procedure of how it works because it's the third time I'm doing it. Okay, so here I'm going to give the name of the table as TBL books. Okay, let me just keep it as like that. And once it is ready, once the design surface is ready, I can just give every column and what data type they belong to. Okay, also I'm going to give it as auto increment. Okay, so once this is ready, let me just give book underscore ID. Let it be int, and let me change it into auto increment. So identity, let me open that and then say true. That is done. Next one is book underscore name. So I'll give varchar. Okay, and let me give book underscore author varchar. Okay, book underscore year, I'll just give it as int. Okay, same thing, but only thing is the name is changing. Let me just make sure that they are not allowing null. That's it. My table structure is ready. Let me just click on update. Okay, let me just click on update database. And once the tick mark is ready and my database is updated to this particular project structure, okay, let me just go back to Server Explorer and refresh and see if that has come here. Once the database structure has come here, let me just open and add some records. Okay, let me just see whether it has come. Okay, so once let me open the show table data and then let's give some records there. So let me just give some names. Let's say Harry Potter, author is JK. Okay. Let me just give only one record. I'm not going to give more. Let me just stop with this. Okay, so my table is ready. Let me go into the next part. Okay, so once my table is ready, you know how my table structure is. My table structure has ID, name, author, and year. Okay, so with that in mind, let me go to Solution Explorer. And before I even write or create ASPX files, let me create the POJO and then the DBO, database access object, or DAO. Okay, so what I'm going to name that here, please note here it is not called POJO because it's not a plain old Java object, rather it is going to be a plain old C# object. So it's going to be POCO. All right, so anyway, let me just create a new one. Let me just right click, add a new item. Okay, please note this is a different way of writing the same database code what we have been writing so far. Whatever I had done in the last two programs are not like standard. Okay, because that was just given for demo, which means I did one project, or for example one code. If you say insert code, the entire code was there in that block itself. You don't go to another file to access. But here what I'm going to do is going to be reused. It's a reusable code. So I'm going to just click on code and I'm going to go to class. I'm going to just create class, a simple C# class. Okay, I'm going to name this class as first one. Let me create a POCO, which means I'm going to create a class called book. Okay, please note my class name is just book. Let me just click on add and a simple class would be created. Okay, now in Java, how would I create a POJO is I will first create a data type. Let's say for example, in my program right now, I'm just giving an example with our program. I'll be creating something like this: int book ID, and then I'll say string book name. Like that, I'll be creating. Okay, a book name. I'll be giving like this, and then I'll right click and say generate getters and setters. I hope you guys remember that. Okay, now here in C#, you don't have to do that. In C#, same concept, getters and setters can be written in one line without even writing much lines of code. And that concept here is called as properties. So please note what I'm doing. I'm just going to type prop. Okay, it is going to give you a code snippet. Just press tab. Okay, just tap tab twice and then you'll get something like this. First, it will give you public, that is the database, your data access member. Okay, and then later you give the data type and then you give the name of that particular property, because property means the one which has name value pair, and if it has a name value pair you can get it and set it. That's what we've been doing, but This is more sophisticated way. Okay, just need to give the data type, and then you have to give the name of this. I'm going to give it in capital letters, guys. Please note this is C#, so don't give camel case. Camel case is not required here. Okay, so I can just give like this. That's it. This equivalent to Java is int book ID semicolon. Okay, then creating two different methods called get book ID, set book ID with parameter passed. Okay, so please remember that entire thing is now converted into one line of code in C#. Public in name of the value, and then within brackets, flat brackets, just give get semicolon, set semicolon. This is enough. And I did not even type it. I just did like this. Prop. I just type this. Now I'm going to give string. Let me press tab. It will go to the next one. There I'm going to give book name. Done. Next one. Prop. That's also a string. So I'm going to give next one is book author. Next one. Prop. Int. I'm going to say book year. Done. So basically, what is this equal to? This is equal to creating four columns, four data types or variables, and then generating getters and setters. If you remember that code in Java, like last time we did that in Android, you see that will be a huge set of getters and setters. Now here, this has been shortened into only this much lines of code. Done. So you have created a class called book. Okay, now I'm going to create a database access object. So what I'm going to name it as, I'm going to right click and create another C# file. I hope this is clear, guys. Let me move on. Let me click on new item. Let me choose a class. Okay, and this time I'm going to name it as books DAO. Okay, I hope you remember last time also we did somewhat like this. We named it as adapter. Since there is a keyword called adapter here, I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to use another word called DAO, short form for data access object. Let me just click on OK. And another class is being created. Okay, I hope you guys are following. All right, so now I've created a class. What should I do next? Okay, next is I need to make sure that I create different methods, like how we did in the database adapter in Android. One, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method which will open the connection to the database. Another one, I'm going to write a method which will close the connection to the database. Okay, then I'm going to create a method which will retrieve all the records and give you a data set, and insert, update, delete, which will return true or false, whether it is inserted or not. So for that purpose, let me begin. First thing, all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a global variable. Okay, globally, I require SQL connection. So I'm going to give SQL connection. When I press enter, it will automatically import what is required. You can see that system.data.sql client. Okay, let me just give con. Okay, you can give it as SQL connection or whatever suggestion it's coming there. You can choose any name. So just to keep that same word, I'm using SQL connection con. Okay, now followed by which I am going to use, let me just do whatever is required with this first. Let me create a simple method, public void. Let me just open it as open connection, or let me just name it as open. Just for your understanding, I'm writing like this. You can just write connect, disconnect, something like that. Okay. So I'm just going to create a small method which will, once you click on open connect, or when you call open connect method, I want this connection object to be instantiated. Okay, so how do I do that? All I need to do is con is equal to, please note it is globally created and locally instantiated. Okay, so which means imagine if I create another method here which accesses this con object without calling this method, it is not going to work. Okay, or you can also write it as a constructor for books DAO. Okay, that's also possible. How do I write a constructor? Okay, so that you need not open connection specifically, I can even write it like this. Okay, let me write it as public books DAO. Okay, and here I can write it something like this. Okay, what is this? This is a constructor, which means as soon as you create an object of books DAO, I'll instantiate the connection. How do I do that? Just write con is equal to new SQL connection. And what is expected here inside this SQL connection as a constructor? Just a connection string. Okay, please remember the syntax of how I'm typing it. Okay, so that's it I require. Now, where do I get the connection string from? I get the connection string from the Server Explorer, from the database, not from the table. Right click on the database, go to its properties, you will get connection string here. Let me just copy it, and I told you that I'll be making it proper. Okay, right now let me just copy and paste it here. Let's see how that connection string comes. I hope till now you're in the right path, guys. I hope you understand. Okay, what I've done is I've created a global variable called con. And as soon as you instantiate this class, I am going to instantiate it. Or you can create your own method called connect or open. Whenever you want to open, you can open it and then close it, etc, etc. Okay, so let me do that now. First, I'm creating a new connection, SQL connection, and inside this I'm supposed to pass a connection string which I've copied. Let me just paste it. Okay, now you see there is no error with respect to what I've pasted, but when it comes to when you put it before in the previous programming or classes, I removed that at and then I pasted it so that single quote was coming and you had a problem. Single quote and double quote. Now you see there is no issue at all because I copy pasted it properly. And with at in front, system understands what I'm trying to do. I hope this is clear. Okay, now I told you that this is a absolute path. Please note, where is that MDF file located? It is in C, users, your name, source, repos, inside that your project name, inside that app underscore data, and inside that it is written as booksdb.mdf. Now, there is a short form or there is a way in which you can write it as a relative path. Okay, how do I do that? All I need to do is till that absolute path word is there, right? Delete it. Okay, it is not required. Let me just delete it. And then put a pipe. Please note the symbol. Put two pipes. In between that, just write data directory. Be very careful of the spelling. This is a keyword. Data directory. Please note, I have highlighted only that part. This is not an absolute path. This is a relative path. Okay, what do you mean by relative path? Wherever you copy this project and give it off. Okay, if for example in my system C users Thomas exists, but if I copy this project and give it to the server or give it to you, you would not have that folder like that. So what happens here? That will be an error. But if I give this project after making it into data directory and give it to you, it will work in your laptop also, it will work in my laptop also, which means this is a relative path. Okay, I did not take the relative path thing in the previous two programs purposely. Okay, there I wanted you to create it in at least self-sufficient only in your laptop. But this project what we are creating will work universally. Alright, so this is the project of a database name what I've created. But imagine if I'm using a server, my connection string will look a little bit differently. Okay, here you will be passing username, password, etc. Like how we had done in PHP Okay, so if you are doing PHP MySQL, then you will have to do this connection string. Okay, but here since I'm using Microsoft SQL Server, I can just give it like this. Alright, so that's it. So look at the code now. It's looking a little bit more smaller or simpler compared to what we had in the previous programs. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Let me move on. And do not move on when you find an error in this line. If this line does not work, no point in proceeding. Okay, and as soon as you instantiate my class, I'll open the connection. Done. Okay, so now let me write another method which will close the connection. So I'm going to say public void. Let me name it as close connection. Simple method so that you can call it from any place and then say con.close. Done. If you just call this method, this books DAO, and then call close connection, your connection will be closed. Okay, this is standard, guys, not because it's working. Okay, working can be done as you can directly write this entire code in one file itself and make it work. But better to have it like this so that it will be standardized. Okay, so this is one. I've opened the connection as soon as you initialize this particular class, and I'll close it when you call close connection method. I hope till this it's clear. Now let's move on to the operations. Okay, so what are the operations we are going to perform? First, I am going to perform insert, update and delete. Last, I'll perform retrieval. Okay, purposely. So let me just start with the similar ones. First one, public. Let me name it return type. I'm looking for Boolean. Why? Because I want yes, true or false, whether it is inserted or not. I don't want anything else to be known. So I'm going to write public Boolean insert. Let me just say insert, or you can just name it as add book. Okay, now please note the advantage of using this kind of a POCO is that you need not sit and pass each and every column. Please note, I've given you why I should use this. If it is in all my databases right now, what I've taken, only 3 columns you are inserting. Imagine I'm asking you to do a registration form. You are asking like 10, 15 records. You will not be passing 15 records in this particular method. It's a big code. So what would we do? We'll keep it simple. We'll make it as one object. So one instance of this class will be equal to one row in my table. I told this formula in the last semester also. I'm repeating it again. Please remember this. An instance of a book class, the book class what I'm creating here, will be equal to one record of a book. Okay, in other words, one instance of this class will be equal to one row in the table. Okay, please remember that. Let me just keep that in mind and say, what should I pass here? If I just pass one instance, okay, I'll just say book space B. That's enough. Please note this object of book, what I created here, will hold all the records including ID, the book author, book name, year, everything will be there in this particular object. So I need not pass int year, string, book name, string, author name, all those things are not required. Just pass this, it's enough. Now, in order to perform insert, all I require is connection and command. Please note, by the time you reach here, connection would have been opened. I hope you follow. As soon as you create an object of this class, connection would have been open. So I call this object and then directly say add book. Connection will be already open. So all I require here is command. And please note that command is required in add, insert, and update. Okay, insert, update, and delete. All I'm going to do is I'm going to create it as a global object. So SQL command, let me name it as CMD. Globally creating but locally instantiating. So now I'm going to say CMD is equal to new SQL command. I need to pass the command there and then say connection object. Which connection object am I using? This one, because it's by default right now open. So I can just pass that connection object. Done. Okay, so what is the query now? The query is very simple. It is insert into TBL books. I think that's my table name. TBL books, yes. And let me just say what are the values I'm going to insert. I'm going to say book underscore name, comma, book underscore author. Okay, this is SQL guys, and book underscore year. These three records only I'm going to insert and say values. I open the bracket. I hope this pattern everybody is familiar with. Okay, only in ADO.NET we'll be writing like this, guys. Don't worry. Okay, when we go to link and entity framework, this syntax will not be an issue at all for you. I'll discuss that in the next class. Okay, so values, single quote. And where will I get the value from? From that object called of books, B dot. Okay, you can see all those things are coming here. One and all are stored in that particular object. Okay, I can just say name, book name. Okay, let me concatenate that and say single quote. Close that first record. Second record is also a string. So I'm going to open the single quote. Then let me concatenate that with B dot. Okay, I'm going to say book author. That's also available in that particular object. Now, since author single quote has opened, let me close it here and then comma. The last one is not a string, so it's a number. So I need not open the single quote. I can just close it here and say B dot year, book year. Okay, now let me concatenate that and close the bracket which I had opened right next to the name. Okay, the bracket which I had opened here. Now let me just continue. I've done insert, and please note that command takes two parameters. One is insert and the other one is the SQL command as well as the connection object. Both I have passed. Now the last line I need to do is very simple. Okay, so I just need to say if that command got executed successfully, return true. Otherwise, return false. I can write it in an if condition or I can write it in one line. First, let me write it with the if condition, then I'll change it into one line. Okay, let me just write if command dot execute non-query. Okay, please note what does execute non-query return? Execute non-query returns the number of rows which got affected. Okay, it returns an integer. So I'm going to say execute non-query if it is greater than 0. Okay, I'll just say return true. Okay, this is one way of writing, and if that condition executes, it will not come to this line. So if that condition does not execute, it will come to the last line where I'll say return false. Done. Okay, this is a simple way of writing if that command executes, return true, otherwise return false. I hope this is clear, guys. Okay, I can write it in one line also. I can write it like this. Okay, let me just comment this out for a minute. Like how we wrote it in Android, I can just write return cmd dot execute non-query greater than 0. This is also fine. Okay, if you understand what is happening, this is the simple way of explaining it. If command.execute non-query returns a record which is greater than 0, then return true. Otherwise, return false. Here, I've made it into one line and said return command.execute query greater than 0. If this, whatever this line returns, let it be true or false, that will be returned to Boolean. And this will work. This is fine. So I can just finish it in 2 lines also. I think this is clear. So let me just remove this. It's only this big. Okay. It's small and you can just write an insert query. Now, if I just call add book and pass an object of book, I'll be inserting and returning to you yes or no. Okay. Please remember, I recommend all of you to put this code inside a try catch block always. Okay. Always use a try catch block. Okay, since I'm explaining or demoing, I'm not using this try catch, but you're in real world, you're supposed to use try catch. For don't forget that. Okay, that is one. Now I have added a book. Let's go to update book. Okay, in update book also it's the same thing. So I'm going to create public boolean update book, and you need to pass which book. So I'm going to pass an object of book B. Same just like how we had written add book. Okay, so the command is going to be command is equal to, I'll say new SQL command, and inside that you're supposed to pass the command. How do I pass the command? Here it's very simple. Update TBL books set book underscore name is equal to, where do I get the name? Okay, so single quote, let me concatenate that with B dot book name. Simpler. Okay, and let me move on. Single quote. Next to a record is book underscore author is equal to, again I'll start single quote. Okay, let me concatenate that with B dot books author. Let's continue, and I'll say close that single quote, then comma, book underscore year is equal to, I don't require single quote, so I can stop here and say B dot book year. Okay, it's not over, we'll continue, and I'll just say where book underscore ID is equal to, that's also an integer, so I can just stop and then say B dot book ID. This is my query. Where should I execute it? On top of connection object. Done. This is my update query. Okay, still there is an error shown in the method because you have not returned anything. The return will be exactly same as this. Done. Okay, so adding and inserting and updating will look exactly the same except for the SQL query. Remaining everything is very simple. Okay, now next one. Let me just write public boolean. Let me write the delete book. So I'll say delete book. In order to delete a book, you need not pass the entire book. All you need to pass is the ID of the book. So I'm going to say int book ID. You just need to pass me the ID of the book, and I'll write the command. Command is equal to new SQL command. I'm going to say delete from TBL books where book underscore ID is equal to, concatenate that with whatever you have passed to that particular method, book ID, comma, con. Don't forget that ever. Okay, the last line is going to be still the same. If the command.execute non-query returns something greater than 0, return true. Otherwise, return false. As simple as that. So I've done adding, updating and deleting using connected architecture of ADO.NET. Now I'm going to write retrieval code. For that, I'm not going to use connected architecture. Rather, I'm going to use a disconnected architecture. And since I'm not going to repeat that disconnected architecture anywhere else, I'm not going to create it globally. Let me create it locally. Okay, so how do I do that? I'm going to say public. What should be returned when it comes to a retrieval or returning in disconnected architecture? It is going to be always a data set. Okay, please don't forget it. It's going to be a data set. Return type is going to be data set, not a list. List will be creating later. I'll be using something called list, but right now I'm not going to create a list. I'm going to keep it as data set so that we understand. And I'm going to say get all books. Okay, there's some simple method we are going to give get all books. Nothing to pass to get all book details, right? So I'm just going to create get all books. So now with that, what should I write here? Okay, connection is already open. So the next thing I require is SQL data adapter. So let me just put DA is equal to new SQL data adapter. And what is the query? Select star from TBL books. No query, no command, nothing. Okay, so I'll just say That's it. Data adapter, select star from books on top of this particular connection. What am I supposed to return? Okay, so let me just create a data set so that I can pass it. Dataset ds is equal to new data set, and then ask the adapter to fill this data set and then return that data set. That's it. Okay, so I've kept all these queries or all these methods in individual capacities. So they are all in one place now. Okay, so how do I open a connection? Just create an object of books DAO and connection would be open for you. Then how do I get all the records? Just call dataset into all books. Okay, just method. All this method is required. Let me just show retrieval alone. I think remaining I don't have time, but I think you guys can try it on your own. Okay, so let me just create a new web form with master page. Let me call it as display.aspx. Let me quickly show this to you guys and that will stop. Okay, so here all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop a grid view. Okay, so I'm not going to show the label. I'm just going to put a grid view just to see whether it works. So let me just go to data controls and grid view. And in the grid view, let me give the property name as GV books. Okay, and also let me give the CSS class. So table hyphen border. That's enough. So I have given the structure. Let me go to the code. So as soon as the page loads, what do you want me to do? Okay, please note I'm not going to create any query or anything. I'm not going to write anything with respect to SQL here because I've already written everything. So all I need to do here is create an object of books DAO. And I need not import any package because books DAO is in the same namespace as my ASPX file. ASPX is in the same namespace called database demo. Display.aspx is also in the same place, so you need not import anything. I can directly call books DAO. Let me name it as DAO is equal to new books DAO. Now, when I write this line of code, what would have happened? As soon as you instantiated this object, connection object would have been created. Okay, please note everywhere you should put try catch, but I'm not putting it here. Okay, so once the connection object is created, it's very simple to get the data set. Okay, now all I'm going to do is call the grid view and say data source is equal to DAO dot get all books. Please note get all books returns data set as an object. Okay, so get all books. Done. What happens here? Get all books will return a data set and the data set will become the data source of your grid view. Simple. In one line it is done, but never forget this line that it should be data bind. That's it. So the entire code is now became 3 lines of code because I've already written all the code which is required here. And I'm not repeating code ever. Okay, only once I've written the connection code, everywhere else I just used it. So the code looks very simple. Now let's go and run this program and just check whether it works. Okay, if it has errors, then we'll have to fix it. And once we fix one in one place, everything is in the same place, right? So it's easy for us to monitor, also to debug. So let's run the program and check. Okay, here the output is come. Okay, the same program, but the output I've got it properly. I hope you guys can see, and that's how retrieval happens. Now, how will I insert record into the database? All I need to do is create an object of books or book, sorry. Just create an object of book and pass it to add book. That's all. Okay, so since the lack of time, I'm stopping here. Okay, please do try it on your own, guys, and let me know if you face an issue with this. Okay, if you have any issues, please do let me know. I'll try to solve it. Okay.